Hi, my name is Dorothy Hogan Schofield, and I'm the Curator of Collections at the Sandwich Glass Museum. Today I'd like to share with you some of stories of early blown glass that were made by the early workers that came to Sandwich in 1825. Behind me at the center is Edward Haynes. He came to Sandwich in about 1827. His brother, Benjamin Haynes, was a gaffer at the glass company. He was also a Methodist minister. So he would make glass during the week and preach on the weekends. But Jarvis needed more employees, skilled employees. Most of the employees that followed Jarvis, Demi Jarvis, from New England, the New England Glass Works, were Englishmen and highly skilled. So he was looking to improve his workforce as orders came in and were greater. And so Benjamin suggested his brother Edward. Now Edward was living in Dudley, England. He was well known, I guess, for like a leg man, they call them, and they would attach the leg to the bowl of a piece and add the knops. When Jarvis was in need of additional skilled glass workers, Benjamin Haynes recommended his brother Edward. Jarvis paid for Edward's passage from Dudley, England, and the two men became fast friends. They had the same interest in hunting and fishing, and Jarvis would eventually depend on Edward to help with the young apprentices. We are fortunate to have in the collection from the Haynes family a nice tribute to the skill of Edward as a glassmaker. Behind me is the blown sugar bowl, blue, very early. That kind of shaded blue color, opaque blue color, was made fairly early on, about 1827, 1830. The little piece below that is a Flytrap. Now, that kind of seems gross, but they would either put probably a cork stopper or a glass stopper into the top of the Flytrap, and then in the little trough down below, they would put sugar water, which would attract the flies up into the bowl, and then they would fly around and not really find their way out. So I always think of it as not a very attractive ornament for your table. As I might have mentioned before, Edward was very skilled as what they called a leg man, which would be, he would attach the leg or stem to a goblet or a vase, to a blown bowl. There is a piece that has multiple knops onto the bowl. He was told to, let's see what you can do. So he just started to put, usually you just see one. He started to put one after the other, after the other, after the other, and supposedly Jarvis said to him, enough, put a foot on it. So, and that's how we have this kind of unusual goblet, which remained with the family. So among the early products was the Beehive design. The name was given to it because of its shape. It looks like a beehive. Now, author Arlene Palmer Schwinn mentioned in her book, Glass in Early America, that the design had been influenced by English silversmiths, who from 1780 manufactured honey pots in the form of this ridge-like beehive. She also mentioned that the beehive was a Masonic symbol, and the Masons did play a role in glassworkers' lives. For me, I just love the overall aesthetics of the piece. It's really beautiful how this blown piece was tooled into these vertical ribs, and it's I find it very appealing. The sugar bowl with the tall cover was made by William E. Kurn for his sister Catherine upon her marriage to sandwich glassblower Frederick Eaton in 1829. So we know that because of this dated piece, we know that's when it was made. Other examples in the collection include lamps, creamers, candlesticks. Now, some of my most favorite pieces from this early blown period are the blown banks. We call them chicken banks or rooster banks because usually there was a chicken or a rooster at the very top of the piece. These were authors Raymond D. Barlow and Joni Kaiser in their Glass Industry and Sandwich mentioned that money boxes or banks were part of the inventory of what the company made. But I think a lot of these were made for family and friends. And there's not that many that survive because they were often broken to get to the contents. I experienced this with a glassblower named Roby Mason, who was a gaffer at Pearpoint Glass Company, and he made me a bank. And he came into my office one day and saw me with a knife trying to get coins out of my little glass bank. And he says, "Dorothy, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm trying to get my coins out without breaking the bank." And he says, "Well, he says, gosh darn it," in probably not that familiar term, but just break it. He says, "I'll make you a new one." And I think, some of these were broken, and the, uncle or dad would make a new one. We're very fortunate to have this kind of extraordinarily tall bank with lots of little chickens around the rim and lots of riggery, which is kind of the little decorative pieces and prunts that were added to the piece. And unfortunately it was broken, but we were able to have it mended, and it's probably perhaps my most favorite piece. I shouldn't say that because I have several. Most favorite piece in the collection. So that's our stories of early blown glass, and we'll see you next time.